What's up, gamers? DreamcastGuy here, and today we're talking about a very strange project that is incredibly fun to play, which is the Rogue Prince of Persia. A couple weeks ago, Ubisoft reached out to me and said, "Hey, do you want to play something truly mind-blowing?" And I was hesitantly excited. You know, I love fresh ideas, I like weird projects, and this is certainly one I did not see coming. It's essentially Dead Cells 2. If you haven't played it, this is a roguelite. It is a game where every time you play it, it's a little bit different. New weapons, new enemies, new bosses, new areas to explore. But with this one, it's all done, of course, with the Prince of Persia paint. Now, let me be clear. This game is kind of insane because of that randomization. I've definitely grown to appreciate roguelikes as a genre. The idea that whether it is Slay the Spire or Hades or anything in this genre that's been so incredibly iconic, these games are all about playing it and getting that good, perfect run. So in this, we're playing as a dastardly rogue, a young prince who's trying to defend his kingdom from the Huns. They've decided to invade, and he has this special magical ability. Every time he dies, instead of staying dead, the prince wakes up slightly outside of town, which means he has to fight his way through the sewers, through the streets, and hopefully eventually slay a bunch of these big, brawly bastards. But here's what makes the game so incredibly addictive. So I had a chance to play about an hour of it, and initially, when I first started playing it, it felt good and it felt tight. It felt like one of those games where whether I was kicking people off of ledges or trying to double jump over traps, it's certainly responsive, but I kind of expected that. Just a couple months ago, we got Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, which was one of the best freaking Metroidvanias of the last few years. So when I think of Ubisoft, I definitely don't think a game that's going to lack polish. I was just impressed by how immediately deep all these mechanics feel. Now, this is technically some gameplay provided from the developer because the build I played was certainly incomplete. You could tell that there were certain aspects of it that were placeholders. There wasn't a lot of voice acting, but even in its current state, it was incredibly cool to see how it works. So let me just take you through my couple of attempts. I managed to do 3 separate runs trying to escape. The first run, it didn't give me any power-ups. While you're playing a roguelite, the whole idea behind it is that you get different bonuses. In this game, a lot of times it's different weapons or different passive abilities. So if you're going to do like a ranged attack, you can get different styles of it. So it's a big throwing star or a poison arrow and daggers or a two-handed sword. But each of these weapons, of course, has different stats. Sometimes you'll get a bigger blade with more crit and a straight up upgrade because it's a higher item level. But you can also have a lot of times where you have a difficult choice. In roguelites, definitely the best part of them is the fact that you have hard decisions. You get to pick one or the other. And a lot of times when I was playing this, these combinations already feel great. For my first run, since I didn't have any power-ups, it gave me a chance to kind of test out these different mechanics. Now, you have a hit button, which is your basic strike, which if you hold down does a bigger hit, but you can also kick people, which causes a pretty beefy amount of knockback. Now, you can hit people into walls to stun them, you can kick 2 enemies into each other to deal some pretty decent damage, or you can kick people straight up off cliffs for an instant kill. But a lot of enemies have like this laser shield thing where initially they're not instantly taking damage. You got to chip damage them down a bit before they're actually going to start bleeding. Those dudes are immune to the kick. So there ends up being this interesting balance of trying to hitting somebody, trying to do a power-up attack, or trying to whittle them down with some of your ranged strikes. But what's really good about this game is how these passives work. So In my couple runs, I really enjoyed experimenting with poison builds. There were a couple different styles of power-ups I found. There were like little trinkets that made it so that when I hit people and it happened to be a strong strike, sometimes it would detonate and poison them. I also found this thing where if I broke somebody's shield, it would automatically put this oil on the ground, which made it where I could light them on fire easier. But what I liked about this is that you get 4 separate passives per run, at least in this early build of it. Maybe it'll be different when the game actually comes out, but it was cool trying to pick and choose. Because there isn't like a definite destination, and since everything is randomized, in roguelites, I like to try and explore a lot. Going back, trying to check out different stuff, making sure I have every single possible power-up before I face that next, well, usually overwhelming boss. And in this, it was cool that I had a lot of times these tough choices where it's like, all right, do I want to get an ability where I get healed for 3% of my life if I kill somebody while they're poisoned? Or do I want to have a special power where kicking people against the wall immediately catches them on fire? The playtester I was playing the game with, like while I was playing the game, there was like a developer in a voice call, and she was telling me that she had a build where every time she killed enemies, it would multiply her health by a bit, and she managed to just start breaking the game. That to me is the most addictive part of roguelites. It's that really cool loop of trying to figure out how to completely dismantle the game. Now, let me talk about the goods and the bads. When it comes to the game itself, one of the things that really surprised me the most about this, though, is definitely the traversal. So you can do a jump and then a dash and then another jump. It's pretty straightforward when it comes to just the technical aspects of traversal, but if you hold the dash button on areas that have like a background, you can scale the background. Like, I'm going to put some slowed down gameplay of it here so you have like a visual display of it, but it almost kind of changes how you have to look at the platforming, because it's not always just about timing a jump. Sometimes it's about staggering between dashes, jumps, and wall running on the background. This to me is incredibly cool because it definitely feels like it's trying to do something different, and because it is so intuitive, I found myself very instantly weaving this into my combos. I would actually just have times where I'm just doing some stabs and then flipping around and then running up the background to dodge a trap or try and knock them into a trap after I've just scaled out of the way of a big strike. This feels great. I will say, the one part of this that I don't love is they're launching it in early access. Now, they did this as well with Dead Cells, and let's face it, Dead Cells is an incredibly good game. It's one of the best roguelites that's ever been made. It's just so cool and charming and incredibly freaking deep with the different builds that are in it. But that game, when it came out in early access, I wasn't thrilled about jumping into an incomplete game. And as good as this is, I know this is only going to be like Act 1. It's going to be the opening chapters and early bosses. Now, they did say that this is because the game itself is already a very fun package, but they want feedback. They want to be able to craft this into the perfect Prince of Persia unique experience. And I respect that, but I guess I'm of two minds about this, which is that I guess I'm a bit greedy in that I wish I had more of the project now. That hour I had with the game was so incredibly fun. I'm definitely going to play it in early access when it comes out in May. I mean, it's just so cool to see all the different parts of it, but I don't know. I almost, it's always that thing of like, all right, do I wish they delayed it so I could get the full game as one package, or am I happy to play some chunk of it today? It's a yin and a yang. Honestly, the part of this game that definitely just caught me completely off guard, the soundtrack is insane. Now, I'm afraid to play it because I'll probably get copyright claimed by Ubisoft, but here, let me just have a couple seconds. Okay, so you get it. This is a bop. It has like crazy high intensity blaring style techno. Look, I don't know anything about music, which is why I typically don't talk about music in my reviews. This, though, has some absolute bangers. Even during the initial demo, I found myself tapping my toes and really digging it. From the comic book art style they're going for, to just the way the combat works, to the unlockables that we're probably going to have. I mean, this seems like the kind of game that I definitely am excited for. And a couple weeks ago, I didn't even know it existed. I have to just say, way to go, Ubisoft. This is the kind of stuff I want to see more of. It's different. And in this industry where stuff is feeling a bit stale at times, I'll definitely take different. But what do you guys feel about the Rogue Prince of Persia? Tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and be sure to keep dreaming. And thanks again to Ubisoft for letting me play this early. It was a very cool time playing a game I didn't know existed. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.